Regular season stakes, point differentials, fancy courts. It can only mean one thing. It is time for the NBA Cup, and we're previewing it all today on Locked On NBA.
You are Locked On NBA, your daily NBA podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome to Locked On NBA. Thanks so much for making us your first listen of the day. We are free and available wherever you get podcasts. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. I'm Doug Branson, host of Locked On Hornets and your Shot Clock Sherpa, guiding you through the NBA's biggest stories with the help of Locked On's local experts. Today's episode is brought to you by our friends at FanDuel. You can start the season with a big return on FanDuel. New customers will get started with $150 in bonus bets if you win your first $5 bet. Visit FanDuel.com to get started. And with me are two of Locked On's premier national NBA experts, senior NBA writer for the Action Network. We've got Matt Moore, and from the Locked On Bulls podcast, Haize. Okay, it is time to talk about the NBA Cup. Are you excited? That's going to be my opening question. Are you excited that we are finally here? The NBA Cup, the in-season tournament, the Emirates NBA Cup. They have a sponsor now. Haize, are you pumped?
Actually, yes. Last year, I really underrated the NBA Cup tournament. I had no expectations for it. I wasn't excited about it at all. But then when it got to the knockout rounds and towards the end of group play, it really was a set of fun games. So I'm actually really excited about it.
I love this thing. I love it. I love this thing so much. It's so good. The courts are different. The guys play harder. Like you could tell watching last year that they would play harder in these games because of the incentive. And that to me is what makes great basketball, is when both teams are like going for it rather than, well, we're like going for it, but it's a long season and blah, 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 blah. And you don't want to show too much. Like, go for it. Go get that money. I love it. Let's go do it. I'm in on the NBA Cup. Cannot wait for things to get started tonight.
I'm glad you're both excited, and I'm glad you mentioned incentives, because later in the show, I want to talk about some of those incentives and if they will be enough to get some of these teams that are focused on the NBA championship to be focused on the NBA Cup championship. We're also going to talk contenders, dark horse candidates, who are going to be the YMCA tryhards like Indiana was last year. We're going to get to it all. But first, I want to talk about this group stage. And so you've got 6 groups in total, 3 in the East, 3 in the West, and they're comprised of these pools of teams that are based on last season's record. And there's some other math that goes into this. But as we know, injuries, teams that are reconstructed somewhat differently can shake all of this up. So as you look over the group stages and the teams that are involved in each group, this is Adam Silver's way of making this like soccer, so I'm going to steal a term from soccer. Which one of these groups looks like the group of death, the toughest group to get out of, Matt?
It's going to be in the West. Shock. Big shock here. It's going to be a Western Conference group. If you go to a Western Conference Group C, Tom Haberstroh over at his Substack, The Finder, had an awesome breakdown of this. The collective winning percentage of Group C that features the Warriors, the Nuggets, the Grizzlies, the Mavericks, and the poor Pelicans. They have a 58% winning percentage right now with an SRS, that's simple rating system, point differential versus strength of schedule, of 2.7. It is leaps and bounds above everybody else. This group is a nightmare. The Warriors, we talked about them as like, are they a contender? We talked yesterday about the Nuggets. Are they a contender? The Mavericks have the MVP favorite coming into the season in Luka Doncic. There's 2 MVP favorites in this one. The Grizzlies, who are back to being closer to themselves. And then there's the Pelicans that everyone's just going to kick around the yard. But other than that, this group is absolutely ridiculous. These games are going to be tough. And if the cup wasn't enough, tiebreakers are going to matter for these teams in playoff scenarios. They have to take all these games seriously. These are big games in group play for Group C.
Group C is the one that stands out the most. I came into this, like if you'd asked me at the beginning of the season, I thought that the East A group may be a slightly competitive group, but then Orlando's without Paolo, Philadelphia 76ers are without Life, and then, Charlotte Hornets and the Knicks, they're okay. But yeah, the West C group is the one that stands out the most. Like the East C group could be okay just because of no, not really. Let me stop trying to convince myself it will be. The West C group is the one to watch.
Well, I mean, the East C group is definitely top heavy with Boston and Cleveland, but then you follow that with Chicago, Atlanta, and Washington. All the East groups, as Matt was alluding to, are going to be tough. But I think the East Group B wins the group. If West Group C is a group of death, and I think East Group C is the group of dead, because you've got Milwaukee, Indiana, Miami, Toronto, Detroit. I just have no idea. I mean, Milwaukee catching a break here, even though Damian Lillard may be out for a little while with a concussion. But, I mean, catching a break here in this group play. Okay, so we're going to have more on which teams are the favorites to win it all, which teams are the dark horses. We're going to do superlatives. And, of course, we're going to talk about the fancy courts. But first, a little bit of NBA news from last night. The Cleveland Cavaliers remained unbeaten, 12-0. After beating the Chicago Bulls, but it was the bench that stepped up big time. Here's Locked On Cavs host Danny Cunningham with more.
The fact that they keep finding ways to win these basketball games when they clearly don't have their best performance, that to me is not only really impressive, but it's a sign of a really great team too. Good teams don't win games like Saturday and like Monday night, truthfully. Great teams win games like Saturday and Monday night. The Cavs have announced themselves as a great team. They're number one in all the power rankings. They are 12-0. They're the 8th team in NBA history to begin the season 12-0. This is a team that is a true championship contender, whether everyone likes it or not.
Okay, they're a great regular season team, at least for now, and TBD on the playoffs, but what about the NBA Cup? What do you give their chances to be contenders for the NBA Cup? Right now, FanDuel has them with the 4th best odds behind Boston, New York, and Minnesota. Haize, where do you have Cleveland ranked in your contenders group here?
I mean, yeah, they're definitely contending to come out the NBA Cup. I think the one thing is that they are in that group with Boston. That could get pretty interesting for them. But at worst, like even if Boston does completely kill everybody in that group, they're still going to make it in as a wild card more than likely. One team as well that I would have above them, I would say, I'd probably still put Dallas even above them, and if we're ranking teams. But overall, like Cleveland has just as good a chance. And it's the NBA Cup, everybody has a chance. That's why it's fun.
Dallas fans would not put the Mavericks above Cleveland, just so we're being clear here. I can tell you that right now. We can check out maybe Nick Angstadt, but that's about it. Look, I do think that the Cavs are in a great spot here. My thing here is I'm always of the opinion when you're playing so great and so awesome and everything's going great, it's not how you're going to be in a month. And so I feel like Cleveland's probably not peaking too early. I think they got a real shot here of winning the NBA title, but I think it's unlikely they won't get caught. Chicago had a lead second half last night. I had bet on the Bulls to be the one to knock off the Cavs undefeated streak. There's some vulnerabilities there, and I think it's also the Cup is going to be a lot about shot variance and high-powered offense. The Cavs have that this year, and that's good, but it can also mean based off of the three-point rate, it can get a little wonky, and they do face some teams in this group that are so good from shooting from deep that it can get a little weird here. I think Boston's probably the best insulated to get through that given how good they are in those environments. So I think Cleveland, it wouldn't shock me if Cleveland won the NBA Cup, but like Haize said, last year, no one thought Indiana and the Lakers were going to be in the finals, and that's great. That's what we need again this year. So it'd be a little bit weird if it was, well, the Cavs are undefeated, so they'll be in it. Well, we'll see.
And I was shocked to see New York in those top 3 for the FanDuel odds. But as you mentioned, high scoring. I looked at last year's scores during group play and in the tournament, and those were all high scoring games. So maybe you're onto something there with the shot variance and the scoring. Very quickly, who's your pick? Prediction time. Who's your pick to come out of the NBA Cup, Matt?
Oh, this is tough. I will go with the Golden State Warriors. I think that they're a team that with the defense and 3-point shooting, Buddy Hield, I'm kind of going against myself here where it's are they going to hold? I've been talking about, is Buddy Hield going to keep shooting 57% or whatever from 3? But with what they've got, they're still likely to make it out of group play, right? There's Nuggets and Mavericks, and that's tough. But if they make it out of group play, I do think the Warriors will enjoy being they like these kind of games. Draymond's talked about how it's hard for them to get up for all sorts of games. These would be games that they would get up for, especially when they get into knockout stage. So I'll take the Warriors with their combination of defense. And I mean, the NBA how much would the NBA love it if Steph Curry was NBA Cup Finals MVP? That seems like a narrative everybody can get around. So I'll take the Warriors.
Haize?
I'm taking this. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
No, go ahead.
Oh, I'm taking the Celtics. I just think that the Celtics is going for it. I'm picking them to win everything this year.
Boring.
Oh, yeah, it is boring. Sometimes real life is boring.
All right, coming up, Matt and Haize will tell you who will win each group. We're going to do some group predictions and who this year's version of the Indiana Pacers are, the YMCA Tryhards. Who's going to jump in there as a dark horse and shake things up? And later, the best and worst of these new court designs for the NBA Cup. Which one will Haize fall in love with? Which one will make Matt's eyes bleed? Find out only on Locked On NBA. So here's the deal with big wireless providers. What they advertise and what you actually pay sometimes can be two very different things. Between that and storefront signs and your first bill, the price tags can somehow double thanks to hidden fees and surprise charges. But with Mint Mobile, that's just not the case. They say $15 a month for a 3-month plan, and they mean it. Imagine saying goodbye to monthly bills that make your jaw drop and wondering why you've got extra charges. I hate that. Mint Mobile is premium wireless starting at just $15 a month. I love that. Every plan includes high-speed data, unlimited talk and text, and it all runs on the nation's largest 5G network. Keep your current phone and bring along your numbers and contacts. To get this new customer offer and your new 3-month premium wireless plan for just $15 a month, go to mintmobile.com/LockedOnNBA. That's mintmobile.com/LockedOnNBA. Cut your wireless bill to $15 a month at mintmobile.com/LockedOnNBA. $45 upfront payment required, equivalent to $15 a month. New customers on first 3-month plan only. Speed slower, above 40 gigabytes on unlimited plan. Additional taxes, fees, and restrictions apply. See Mint Mobile for details. More Locked On NBA ahead. Thanks so much for making Locked On NBA your first listen every day. Your favorite NBA team has a free and daily newsletter, so go make them your first read. Go to LockedOnDaily.com and subscribe to stay up to date with local expert analysis and amazing writing from Katie Heindel, Mike Shearer, and Locked On Fantasy Basketball tips from Josh Lloyd. Okay, we've done the sort of, I wanted to get to the juicy stuff first. Who's going to win it all? Now I want to take a step back. Let's talk about group predictions. And just in time for group play to begin, the Philadelphia 76ers got a wild card. They're going to get Joel Embiid back for the first time this season as they get set to face off in one of the national TV matchups tonight against the New York Knicks. He is off his 3-game suspension and will reportedly make his debut tonight. Here's Locked On 76ers host Keith Pompey with a preview of Embiid versus Cat.
When I look at this matchup, the obvious things stand out. When it comes to Karl Anthony Towns, Cat is a pretty good offensive scorer. He's coming off of 3 consecutive 30-point games. They're going to have a defensive scheme wherever Cat gets in the perimeter in space that either is going to be Joel or somebody else is going to have to go out there and defend them. So I think that's going to be the problem. However, when you look at it, Karl Anthony Towns in a restrictive area this season, opponents are shooting 32 of 35 against him. So I feel like that Joel Embiid, this is a pretty good game where he can establish himself on the low block and he can destroy Cat in that area.
And as we talked about in the first segment, this is going to be one of the only tough matchups they have in this group against New York. Should we count out Philadelphia, or do you think getting Joel Embiid back and being in this group gives them a chance to get out of the group stage and get closer to Vegas, Matt?
I'm only counting him out. So Joel's coming back, and it's going to take a little bit for his conditioning to get back up, and it's going to take a little bit for the team to get used to playing with him again. They are better with Embiid. There's no question about it. It's a matter of you got to win these specific games, right, in group play. You got to win these games in this order. And yeah, the group is weak, but I don't think the Sixers are strong enough without Tyrese Maxey. Like, they're just still banged up and they've got no continuity. I don't want teams like that. I want teams that know how they're playing. So I don't think that the Sixers are the team to come out of East Group A.
Yeah, I'm not picking the 76ers to come out of any group right now. It's just too much uncertainty around it. Like, I still like the team overall if everybody can stay healthy and get healthy, but that East A group, like, I would even pick Charlotte right now over them just because, like, LaMelo can get hot for specific games and he can go off and you never know. But the New York Knicks are the favorite to come out that East Group A. I think easily right now.
Oh, I'm just telling you right now, like I can't believe Haize beat me to it because I was like, oh, I'll let him go and then I'll sneak in with my big take. Yeah, I'm taking Charlotte to come out of East Group A. So we talked about the offensive stuff, right? Guess what? Hornets are third in 3-pointers made per 100 possessions entering into the NBA Cup play. This is what you want. You want a team that's competitive, that has guys that want the money, that aren't looking for a championship, that are going to take these games seriously and shoot a lot of threes. That's the Charlotte Hornets. I think there's a really good chance that they're able to get past this. I don't buy in on the Knicks. That defense is not great. Brooklyn's sneaky too. That one's tempting, but I will take the Hornets by just a hair. But I think that the games in this group are actually going to be really, really interesting. Like Charlotte, Orlando is going to be a really fascinating counter match, and I'm excited for those ones. But I'll take the Hornets for the upset in Group A.
And if they do somehow make it out, I mean, they are due to get a little bit healthier. They could make some noise if they manage to get out. They are making a ton of threes, but it's because they are taking an enormous amount of threes. They are really heeding the edict from new coach Charles Lee. Okay, what about the rest of the groups in the East, B and C? Who are your picks to come out of there?
I think Miami gets the wild card. I really want to pick Detroit. Like I really want to pick Detroit, but I'm not going to pick Detroit because they don't have enough offense. I'll take Indiana to repeat as the group winner. I just think that the Pacers offense is really well geared for this. I like their matchups with teams. Like they give Milwaukee problems. Toronto can't hang with them. Detroit can't hang with them offensively. I think Indiana and Miami are two that come out of this group into group play or into knockout play. But I'll take Indiana to win the group. And in East Group C, which is pretty tough. Ooh, I want to take the Bulls, Haize. Like they bomb from three. And they allow fewer of them. It's why I like them in that Cavs matchup. If I knew Lonzo was going to be back, I would probably take Chicago. I will take Boston to win the group, which I hate, but I will take Boston right now. I do think only one of Boston or Cleveland make it out into knockout play, though.
I will take the Detroit Pistons in East Group B.
Yes.
I will take the Pistons in East Group B. Something about the way Cade Cunningham, Jaden Ivey's playing. Like, I just think, again, I look at this at the NBA Cup. It's like, who can get hot during the right games? And I can see Detroit, especially in this group play, beating all these teams in this group. Like, not to say that they're the best ones in it, but I can see them winning these games. So I'm definitely picking the Detroit Pistons in East Group B. In EC, again, I will be boring and vanilla here. I got the Boston Celtics coming out of EC.
This is crazy. I don't really even need to ask about the Dark Horses because you've both selected a 5 seed to come. Now, if you're going to do it in the Eastern Conference for sure. Let's shift over to the West, where one of you have already picked Golden State in Group C. Let's go to Group A: Minnesota, Clippers, Sacramento, Houston, Portland. Haize, who you got in that group?
West Group A. I want to pick the Minnesota Timberwolves, but I'm actually going to go with my gut here. And for some reason, my gut is telling me that with having De'Aaron Fox, DeMar DeRozan, Domantas Sabonis, West Group A is going to go to the Sacramento Kings here.
I love this pick. I love that pick, Haize. That's a great pick. If they get in crunch time, which team do you want more? Like in a regular season clutch time environment, what team do you want more than one with De'Aaron Fox and DeMar DeRozan? It's the same one that you want the least if there's any sort of actual NBA playoff stakes on the line. I will take the Minnesota Timberwolves here because I can't just like bounce off. The Wolves are bombing from deep. So if they've got an elite defense and they've got the 3-point variance, they're going to get through this group, I think. Yes, there are nights when they can get caught. Houston's really tempting, but I'm going to stick with the Minnesota Timberwolves here.
Okay, Group B: Oklahoma City, Phoenix, last year's champion, the LA Lakers, Utah, and San Antonio. Anyone going to dive in and predict a Wemby run in the West, Group B? Matt.
If KD hadn't gotten hurt, I'd be all over Phoenix. I'd be like, Phoenix is winning this group outright. They're a threat to win the cup, but without KD, I can't get there. I can't believe this. I'm taking the Lakers again. I'm just taking the Lakers. Like,
inevitable.
Look, they are the greatest NBA Cup team we've ever seen. So there's, they got LeBron, Anthony Davis. The offense is actually cooking. The defense has been the problem. And so I think that they'll be able to get there. I like these matchups for them versus the Spurs and the Jazz, the Suns without KD, OKC without Chet. Guess what? That changes that dynamic entirely. They're going to have Davis is going to feast. I think Davis Cup MVP probably has some value. over at FanDuel. So I'll take the Los Angeles Lakers.
Hey,
this is difficult because my heart is telling me to pick the Phoenix Suns, but KD not being there, much like Matt, I'm still going to pick the OKC Thunder. I still think the OKC Thunder are going to get hot. I think that perimeter defense, yes, AD could kill him in the middle without Chet, but I look at what the OKC Thunder could do and what Shai Gilgeous-Alexander did last night as well. Maybe I'm just riding high off that right now, but Shai is going to be the best player in this tournament. I'm picking the Thunder to come out of Group B.
And if Phoenix pulls it together and KD gets healthy in time for Vegas and helps them win an NBA Cup and an NBA championship, I'm telling you guys, statue in front of the Suns arena. This is happening. It's all coming together. Okay, very quickly, Group C. Who's your winner?
Denver.
Denver? Okay, you go ahead.
No, I got Denver here. Like Jokic is playing at a crazy level right now, and I look at Denver. I think they're going to run away with this group, in my opinion.
Yeah, I'll take Warriors here. I already picked them to win the thing, so I'll take the Warriors to win the group. I will just also say this. Yeah, Jokic is playing awesome. You know what Jokic doesn't want? Doesn't want to have to deal with playing an extra game and going to Vegas and dealing with the hassle. So I will go ahead and say that they'll get there. I actually wouldn't be surprised if Memphis grabs the wild card from this side of the bracket.
Okay, coming up on the Locked On NBA podcast, we're going to get to a few superlatives for the NBA Cup. We'll talk about these courts, best and worst, and you'll hear from Locked On Suns, and I want to know, should the NBA change the incentive structure even further to get these teams to take this NBA Cup seriously? All that and more on the Locked On NBA podcast. Today's episode of Locked On NBA is brought to you by our friends at FanDuel. Get ready to tackle the NFL action with FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook, because right now, new customers can bet $5 and get $150 in bonus bets if you win. The FanDuel Sportsbook app gives you everything you need to place live bets on the NFL all in one place, so when you get a hunch in the middle of the game, you can check out the latest stats, view live play-by-play, and so much more on the same page where you place your bets. And of course, we're talking NBA Cup, so I had to go out and check what the odds are for the NBA Cup MVP, and right now, Jason Tatum leading the way at plus 650, Jalen Brunson at plus 1100, behind him, Nikola Jokic, Anthony Edwards, Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, and trailing all of them, Luka Doncic at plus 1600. Visit FanDuel.com to join today. You're going to get started with $150 in bonus bets if you win your first $5 bet. That's FanDuel.com. Never waste a hunch and make every moment more with FanDuel, an official sportsbook partner of the NFL. More Locked On NBA ahead. Thanks again for making Locked On NBA your first listen every day. Hopefully you're an everydayer here on the Locked On NBA podcast. If you are, we see you, we hear you, we appreciate you. There is a free daily Locked On podcast for your favorite NBA team. I don't know if I'm breaking news to you here, but you can search your favorite podcast app for Locked On and the name of your favorite team today. Okay, let's talk about best and worst of the new NBA Cup courts. They are redesigned. They are a little bit more unique to the team. And on our sister show here on the Locked On NBA feed, Locked On NBA Game Time, Nick Angstadt and Camille Davis revealed their votes for best and worst courts. First up is Camille with her best.
It is a beautiful, beautiful court. The red outline, the roses, all in the detail of the court. City of Roses. Love that it plays on the city. The gold shines.
The best for me, Charlotte Hornets. They dominate the aesthetic game. I don't know, the purple, the teal. They've got the honeycomb, like the hive thing on the court. They've got the logo in the middle. The hive is alive is a great slogan on the side. I like your worst of the NBA courts.
The Wizards. I understand that you want to shout out the old logo with the hand, but the hand across the court, it looks terrible.
It's their
logo. Looks like
a
paint, like Microsoft Paint.
My worst. I hate this Warriors court. I hate it so much. I hate a gray court. I hate a gray court so much. The Nets one that they had for forever. Anytime you turn on the TV, it just looks so blah and bland. Also, this Warriors logo in the middle, this doesn't look like Warriors to me. I don't know if I'm missing something, but it's just a weird thick line W that just tries to look like a net. I'm not about it.
Okay, Nick's not about that court for the Warriors. Matt, what's your best and worst on these new NBA courts?
Yeah, that Hornets thing is just absolutely beautiful, and I don't just say that because my Charlotte Hornets starter jacket when I was 12 was like the best piece of clothing I've ever owned. The Celtics one is really great. They incorporated the parquet into that design, which I think is really important. The Bucks have that nice blue one. The team's terrible, but that one's really good. Cavaliers also really nice. I love a lot of these courts as long as they're not gray or bright red. Sorry, Haize. These courts are pretty great.
Bulls isn't even all that bright red, but it is too much red. It's way too much red. I like it better than last year's though. Last year's was just all red with the white Bulls logo, and it was just ugly. At least now the Bulls have the black on the outline, and it pops a lot more. And I love how they have the Bulls logo kind of big and faint there at the same time. But the Hornets one is like, it's just there's a cheat code. Those colors together are iconic. It's just is what it is. That colorway is just it's eye catching. It's great. It's beautiful is what it is. One thing also that I think a lot of people aren't talking about enough, in my opinion at least, is the Atlanta Hawks. I like the Atlanta Hawks court a lot.
See, I don't like the yellows. I don't. The Nuggets have one and the Hawks have one, and I feel like these courts, anytime you're on that warm side of the scale, I just feel like it's going to be really loud. Now, I will say this: a lot of the courts looked bad on the design, and then they looked better on TV and worse in person, and some of them looked better in person and worse on TV. So a lot of it just kind of depends on like your viewing perspective. So I'm open to some of these looking better as we actually get to see them on the floor.
So like the City Edition jerseys, there are unique touches on all of these courts. And it's always a dangerous thing to like critique them because you don't know if you're critiquing some like famous artist that was a big part of the city's history. Some of these are like a little hidden. So I always feel weird about critiquing like the hand, for example, that's coming out of, it does look odd. It does look a little clip arty. But, not knowing the origins for some of these city things, I think could be a little interesting. All right, here's another question. To compete for the cup or not compete for the cup? That's the question for teams dealing with injuries or older teams with NBA championship aspirations. The Phoenix Suns qualify in both of those categories. Should the Suns bother shining in group play? Benjamin Garcia and Brendan Clean of Locked On Suns give you their take.
With an older team, with my eyes set on an NBA championship, it's hard for me to get excited for something that if they win it and they don't win the championship, I'm a little out on.
You basically are saying from a Sun standpoint, you don't care about it. We're on the same page there. I don't think the Suns should care about this besides the KD injury. If you had asked me on Thursday of last week before we ever knew Durant got hurt, I would have said it doesn't matter. The Suns are not in a situation with an older team with very much a championship or bust type of mentality to sit here and be, playing 40 minutes and, throwing everything at the wall to try to beat the Utah Jazz on a Tuesday just to get some point differential help in the NBA Cup standings.
Matt is furiously shaking his head. I thought I caught a bit lip there while you were watching that clip. Matt, your thoughts on whether the Suns should compete or, should the NBA up the incentives a little bit?
Look, they're an iconic franchise. Let's settle down a bit, Phoenix. You haven't won anything. 0 titles. You're not the Celtics who are like, we don't need an NBA Cup. We have banner 18 hanging. You're not. The Lakers tried. They're literally the second most accomplished franchise. For you to be like, no, we're too important for this. It's all right. You trying in Phoenix in a Tuesday in November is not going to cost you a chance in April at winning the NBA title. What's going to cost you, is your stars' frequent inability to actually close out NBA series. That's going to be your problem. It is fine. Go win this thing. It would be great. Thinking that you are too good for this is a ridiculous move by franchises. Get off the high horse, especially if you're Phoenix. Come on.
I don't know how to respond to that because I agree with everything Matt said, but wow, you would think somebody mentioned the Clippers. No, but Phoenix Suns. No, seriously though, Phoenix is like compete for the games in front of you. Like that's what you need to do. You need to still be making sure you're going to be in rhythm to start the playoffs. Like how dare you turn your nose up at something that like. We're an iconic franchise. Like, come on now. The Bulls are a more iconic franchise, and we haven't won in the last 20 years. What are we talking about, Phoenix? Come on now. Go out there and compete.
And also, like, look, they got the Lakers, the Spurs, whatever, Jazz, whatever, but they got the Lakers and they got the Thunder in here. If the Suns are as good as I think they are, and the Chet injury is as bad as everyone thinks it is, those games are going to matter for tiebreaker. Suns can use those games. There's reason to try here. You should beat the Spurs and Jazz because they're the Spurs and Jazz. But the other games, those are actually valuable for you down the line in the playoffs. There's dual value here. Go ahead and go for it.
Yeah, I think what gets interesting is when you have some of these NBA Cup games that are on the front or the back end of a back-to-back, and then you have a little bit of a tougher decision to make.
None this year. They changed it. So they almost did it, Doug. They almost did it. They're on 3 and 4s is what a lot of them are. And that's where I think the problem comes in. The league changed a lot of the format for these scheduling to try and avoid these back-to-backs because they're trying to make sure that the big games that they're trying to promote are not in those back-to-back situations. But if it's 3 and 4 and you're the Suns and you have an older squad, like that does, like, you're not going to play as well, which is, again, reason number 7,458. The NBA's got to reduce the schedule.
Okay, so one of the other rule changes that they made was the overtime rules. So essentially, there are no point differential implications if you go into overtime to make sure that these games are, because they are regular season games, that they're on the level and that they're competitive in the way that they should be competitive and not for point differential purposes. So if you go to overtime, your point differential for that game will be 0. So a little rule change there, but the incentive structure didn't change. It's essentially you're playing for a little bit more money. And the question that's going to be asked about this every single year is, should the NBA do more? Should there be something on the line for these teams in terms of postseason play that would make them even more competitive when it comes to trying to win this thing?
You can't do it. If you mess with the playoff structure, then you're devaluing the rest of the NBA regular season. And the players are doing more than enough on that end to get that done. Teams and players are doing more than enough on that end. There's talk about, like, ooh, should you get draft stock? You will never get players to compete for the team's opportunity to replace them with someone else. That is the dumbest idea you can possibly have. Do you know what makes NBA players try? Money. That's what makes NBA players try. Structure's fine. It worked last year. Be happy with it.
Haize?
No, I agree. I think the structure is perfectly fine. I think even the incentives, everything lays out fine for NBA players. Like at some point, you just got to let it be what it's going to be for a while. I think trying to reinvent the wheel year after year would just be pointless. Like, it is what it is. Like the NBA Cup was more competitive than what I thought it had any business being coming into the season last year. Why change it now when you're actually getting competitive play from these players? And to change it to where it has any type of playoff implications, that's just asinine to me. It doesn't make any sense.
Okay, let us know what you think on YouTube in the comments section. You can also check out the YouTube community page. You can follow Matt and Haize on Twitter. Matt is at HP Basketball, Haize at CEO Haize. Make sure you let them know what you think about their takes on this episode of Locked On NBA. Make sure you're following, subscribing, liking everything that we're doing here on this new format, this new version of the Locked On NBA podcast. Thanks for making Locked On NBA your first listen. Enjoy tonight's action, NBA Cup action. Be kind to each other. We'll see you right back here for a recap on tomorrow's episode of Locked On NBA.